Welcome to my organic kitchen garden. It's lush and full of life. It's currently mid-September and I wanted to take this opportunity to show you around the garden while it's still looking lovely. First up, we're starting the Polytunnel where I've got all of my tomatoes growing. We have 18 varieties in here, and out of those my top 2 varieties would be Orange Banana from Real Seeds or Red Beauty from Wild Boar Farm. I haven't had any issues with blight in the tunnel, which is a real bonus considering how rife it's been this year. While we're in the tunnel, I just wanted to point out 2 things for you. The first, these lovely couple of melons that I've got growing. I can't wait to harvest them. And the second is on top of my no-dig beds, I put a casing layer of seaweed. This acts as a broad spectrum fertilizer and boosts plant growth above and below the soil. On the back of the Polytunnel, we've got some aubergines growing. Black Beauty and Pinstripe. In this bed here, I've got a purple variety of sweet corn called Double Red, which has been interplanted with ochre. Ochre is a tuber-forming plant native to the Andes, jam-packed full of antioxidants. I've come across it a few times in my profession as a chef, and it's got a really delicious flavour, and it reminds me of a vinegary chip. Another variety of sweet corn, this one's Double Standard. It's a proper open pollinated plant. It's not a hybrid, which is something of a rarity nowadays. We've lost a lot of our original heirloom corn varieties. This is a bicoloured plant, so it produces yellow and white kernels. It's super sweet, super tasty, and really resilient. Just look at these cobs that it's forming. Huge, delicious. Would highly recommend Double Standard. I've planted flowers all over the veggie garden, and they're not just a beautiful addition. Flowers attract insects who assist with pollination and the control of pests. These dwarf marigolds have been one of my standout performers, putting out big fat blooms all summer. One of my favourite flowers that I planted this year are Mexican sunflowers. The bees have gone absolutely wild for these. They're big, bright and beautiful, and I'll definitely be growing them again next year. Calendulas. Can't forget to give these guys a shout out. They're super medicinal, the insects love them, and they come in a wide range of colours. These are from the Flashback mix. Down here, we've got some common zinnias, a lovely purpley colour on these. Dahlias. I've got so many varieties of these guys, but my favourite, Edinburgh. These are growing in a sick, old school galvanised water tank. Round the back of the cucumber teepee, I've got these black-eyed Susans. I'll definitely be growing these next year because the bees go wild for them. Next door, we've got Aztec Marigold. These smell like tropical fruit delight. I'd highly recommend growing these just for their unbelievable and very unique fragrance. Giant teddy bear sunflowers. One of the coolest looking sunflowers I've ever come across. And these guys don't stop spitting out new flower heads. They're super abundant. Check out these big mamas. Variety Russian Giant. I can't get my head around how big it is. That's what I call a sunflower. Hibiscus. These guys are jam-packed full of antioxidants. They lower blood pressure, improve liver health, amongst so many other health benefits. The Chamomile Patch. It smells incredible over here. In this broken wheelbarrow, we have Purple Sword. It's a variety of stem lettuce, also known as Celtis. We're looking to harvest these long stems. They're delicious in stir fries, and you can also treat it a little bit like asparagus. Round the back of the patch, and we find the first no-dig bed that I built here when we moved to Suffolk. It was home to garlic and onions over winter. I then planted a late sowing of peas, which I cleared last week, a late sowing of broad beans, beetroot and spinach. This will also be home to onions and garlic again this year for overwintering. With no dig, it's possible to plant the same crops consecutively each year. Vintage tea chest planters. All 10 of these had potatoes in earlier in the year. Now they're home to Aztec broccoli, pumpkins and some more potatoes. In the potting shed, and there's not much going on at the moment. On the bench are a few seedlings which need to get planted out in the garden, and some marigold heads which I'm saving for seed. The potting shed is one of my favourite places to spend time in the garden. I'm already thinking ahead to next spring when I could be back in here with my morning cup of tea sowing all of my seeds. In front of the potting shed we have the celery patch. This is one of the crops I'm most proud of this year. I had real troubles germinating the seeds and then had a load of difficulties in the early stages of its life. Now it's lush, green and healthy. My biggest failure this year was the chilies I grew in pots. Now this was due to the compost that I used not being fully composted. We've seen an increase in compost companies selling compost which is not fully biodegraded, and you result in plants that look burnt and shriveled. The cucumber Tepee, arguably my greatest success of this year. I grew 15 varieties of cucumbers around this bad boy, and every single one of them was delicious. Down here we have a late sowing of potatoes ready for a Christmas harvest. The variety, Danube Blue. They produce oval shaped tubers with a beautiful purpley blue skin and a bright white flesh. They have a lovely flowery texture and they're a perfect all-rounder. Down on my right we have the pumpkin patch. We have some real beauties growing in here and they should be ready for harvest in around a month's time. That's what's going on in my garden. There's so much food being grown in such a small space, it's mind-blowing. I believe much of my success is down to my regenerative no-dig approach. The garden is a haven of biodiversity, and this is much needed in this hard agricultural landscape of Suffolk.